All right, here now with more reaction to the verdict is Fox News legal analyst Gregg Jarrett, and Harvard law professor Dr. Alan Dershowitz is with us. You know, I read your column, Greg, about this. Now, this is before the verdict came in, and you talked about Murdaugh's risky gambit to take the stand and how it appeared to backfire. You used a couple of really interesting analogies. One, you said that was the equivalent of a Hail Mary pass. That got my attention. And you said the hope was that maybe there'd be one gullible juror. There was not, obviously. And you said the decision to take the witness stand by Alex Murdaugh in his double murder trial was not just risky, it was foolish. Explain.
Yeah, because, you know, within 5 minutes of taking the witness stand, he utterly destroyed his own alibi. You know, he says, look, I lied to everybody over the last 20 months. I was at the scene of the crime literally minutes before the murders, and I lied to everybody, police, prosecutors, my family, my friends. And yes, I stole and swindled $9 million and lied to my clients, to my law firm, to everybody. But now I'm telling the truth, and now I want you to believe me. That generally doesn't work in the real world. And so as I wrote in my column, the evidence against him was overwhelming. His story had more holes in it than Swiss cheese. And yet I was amazed to watch lawyers and legal analysts on television say, oh, this has got reasonable doubt written all over it. It's a circumstantial case, no direct evidence, no eyewitnesses. I will take a circumstantial case, a strong one, any day of the week. Why? Because witnesses tend to lie or make mistakes. They're fallible. They misperceive events. And here you've got the dead son almost testifying Dad did it because Dad's on the cell phone right there.
Right in the moments before. So the strategy, Professor Dershowitz, I'm a liar, I'm a crook, I'm a drug addict, but I'm not a murderer, even going as far as to say I did not kill Maggie, I did not kill Paul, I would never hurt Maggie, I would never hurt Paul, even under any circumstances. I have a very hard time, maybe, I don't know, the way I was raised, some people call it Catholic guilt, but when I do something wrong, in my heart, I know I'm wrong. He went there day after day after day on the stand, and he testified, lying through his teeth, and he did it, in the minds of many commentators, convincingly. What was your thoughts?
Well, I didn't think it was convincing at all. I done 30 of these homicide-related cases, and the minute the defendant takes the stand, everything else becomes less important. All the circumstantial nature of the case, the fact that there wasn't blood splatter on him, all of that becomes unimportant. The jury looks him in the eye and says, do I believe this man? And as soon as I saw him take the stand, I predicted there would be a conviction. And I just think that it also, taking the stand, makes it much harder to win an appeal. I'm an appellate lawyer. As I say, I've done 30 of these, won a lot of them. But when you take the stand, then the Court of Appeals says, even if there were errors, they were harmless errors because the reason for the conviction was the taking of the stand. So I believe that the lawyers probably did not want him to take the stand, and he wanted to. I know you're going to have O.J. on. You'll remember I was one of the lawyers. The record shows that O.J. wanted to take the stand, and his lawyers worked very hard to persuade him and F. Lee Bailey, who also wanted him to take the stand, not to take the stand so that we could focus on the circumstantial nature of the case, which the jury listened to. But if O.J. Simpson had taken the stand, nobody would have cared about the DNA, the blood stains, none of that. People would have just said, do we believe O.J. Simpson? And that would have produced perhaps a different verdict. We're not sure. But look, let's not celebrate that justice was done in South Carolina. My wife comes from Walterboro, in fact. We don't know whether justice was done. Only the good Lord knows whether justice was done. All we know is that the process seemed to have worked. Now we'll do the appellate process. There have been many other cases where there have been convictions and certainty. The Klaus von Bülow case, everybody thought he was guilty. And then on a second trial, the jury found him innocent immediately. So this is not over. This is something that is going on. There will be an appeal. The appeal will probably lose. 95% of appeals lose, and probably 97% where the defendant takes the witness stand. So probably he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison.
And I bet I remember you did work on the O.J. case, and I bet if I ask you if you believe he's innocent and still looking for the real killers on the golf course, you probably won't answer. Am I right, Professor?
Well, I once met with Bibi Netanyahu, and he had just become prime minister, and he said to me, "Alan, did O.J. do it?" And I said, "Bibi, does Israel have nuclear weapons?" And Bibi said, I can't tell. I can't tell you that. So we both had our secrets.
I understand a mutual. There is something, Greg, and I think your column pre-verdict actually touched on this as well, and that is you called it the Hail Mary pass, but there's always that one juror, that one person that maybe had a preconceived notion in their mind about the family, how prominent the family was, maybe would fight back, maybe would hold out, and then you end up with a hung jury. It seemed like that's what he was playing for, and probably overestimated his own skill as an attorney and thought he could talk his way out of it. It seems like the jury didn't buy any of it.
When all of the facts are against you and you likely know that your client is guilty, what you look for is one naive, one gullible jury that you can fool, that you can con. And I think that was going through Alec Murdaugh's mind when he decided to take the witness stand. I've conned so many people most of my professional life, I can con this jury. Well, in the end, he didn't. And part of the problem, I think, was it wasn't just the cell phone. I mean, he claimed to police that he went over to the bodies, touched them. He went over to his son, manhandled him, tried to lift him up, turn him over. Cell phone pops out. He tries to put it back in. He would have had blood on him. Shoes would have been covered with blood because there were pools of blood. And yet, he didn't have any of that. So the theory of the prosecution, and it was a good one, is he committed the murders, went back to the main house, he cleaned up, took off his clothes, and then he disposed of his bloody clothes and the murder weapons, which, by the way, is pretty easy to do. Just ask O.J.
Wow. Whoa. I think we could have a long special just between Gregg Jarrett and Professor Dershowitz on that case. I have very strong feelings about that, too. Gregg Jarrett, Professor, thank you both. We really appreciate you being with us. Thank you.